Welcome to the Presence in Play podcast, everybody. My name is Lauren Folan, and I'm your host. I am not one for intros or intro songs or intro explanations. It's usually the part in things that I fly right past. So we're not going to be doing that today. And what we're going to be bringing to this podcast is how to play with life again, how to embrace the unknown and discover ourselves and be present so we can truly enjoy the moment. Because we live in this world right now where we're just going, moving, shaking, so disconnected from our bodies, so disconnected from ourselves, so disconnected from our divinity, our truth, and our wisdom. And here we're going to explore all different types of topics that will go into that, of how to bring this body-soul connection, this alchemy back into our everyday lives, and how to play with life again, how to bring more pleasure, more joy, more creativity, more passion back into our lives rather than going through the motions and checking all the boxes and having this mundane cloud over our head a lot of the times. We really want to connect back with our bodies and the divinity within. And that is the main purpose of this journey of life, to trust ourselves on such a deep level and to trust in the divine, whatever it is that you believe in. No one knows. There's 7,000 religions out there. Nobody truly knows. Pick something, believe in it, and see that divinity within your own heart. Because when you do so and you realize that everything is connected and everything has passion and purpose and pleasure and pain, and even the most challenging aspects of our lives can be pleasurable, can be playful, can be a catalyst for depth and change and evolution within. That's when we see a completely different way to view the world. But this episode is all about the darkness reveals, and we can take this in so many different directions. But one of these directions is going to be how this energy of darkness is really a slighted point of view and perspective by society, but is actually one of the deepest healing modalities in my personal experience and from my journeys in the dark. And even we shun this idea of darkness, right? When in reality, it is the representation of the feminine and the feminine energy, the moon, the yin, the slow, the being, the night, where the masculine energy that lies within us all is the representation of the sun doing, moving, the light. So it's rather intriguing that as the feminine rises, as we start to balance these energies back out, we do see a rise of going into our shadows, our subconscious mind, and even things like darkness retreats that I'm going to discuss a little bit about today pop up. So today's all about the darkness revealing, and I'm a huge shadow work. I'm a huge inner child. I'm a huge going into the subconscious. Actually, one of my past journeys in the dark in Guatemala revealed that that's one of my gifts here. I go into the shadows. I go into the darkness of my own psyche, my own soul, my own experience, and come back out to the light and share that. So why I went into the dark, I've been into it twice at this point. And the first time I went, I just called to me. It seemed like the most enjoyable experience. And most people think I'm freaking nuts for even believing that. But when I first heard about the dark, I was like, oh, that's going to be so juicy and so nice and so like relaxing, because I have been a performer, a doer, a mover, a shaker, the best of the best, whatever I could do my entire existence, and repatterning myself to doing absolutely nothing with no communication, with no light, with no anything, seemed like a dream. And that first time I went in, yeah, it was exactly that. It was the most nourishing experience I've ever had in my life. I was held so deeply by this dark energy, right? The wisdom of the dark, that my whole nervous system repatterned. It relaxed. It was so deeply healing. I think I slept for, I don't know, 3 days. I don't know, 3 days. And to the point where I'd put my head on the pillow and I like couldn't lift it back up. So that's that, you know, it was just so deeply nourishing for me. But this past time I went, it was a calling. It was more of the universe being like, let's go, because I was in a metamorphosis, we'll say. Before I went to this darkness retreat, I was in a metamorphosis. I was in it. It was a couple months of being in it. I felt like I was crawling out of my skin. I felt like I had these anxious thought patterns of I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if my beliefs were what I should believe in. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. I didn't know if what my line of work was right, if my partner was right, if this life was right. And it was just this cyclical pattern, and all of this heaviness was coming up of anger and sadness and frustration and fear of the unknown, deep fear of the unknown as well. And the trust was there, as it always is. Sometimes it gets a little hazy, but it was this sense of chaos that I was sitting in. And I got an email, and I've been trying to go to Darkness Retreat for the past year, since my last one, trying to set something up. And I got an email and it was like, boop, Darkness Retreat, do you want to come? Basically. And they've been sold out for years. And the one that I particularly was going to, they weren't hosting them this year. And then it popped back into my stratosphere for that first time. And I was like, yep, because I was going through it. I was going through all the feels. One of the metamorphosis, I was in the chrysalis, I was in the cocoon, and it was like, do you want to come? And I was like, yes. And they're like, do you want to come in June? And it was the end of May. And I was like, yes. So within 2 weeks, I booked it and was just on a plane ready to go, basically. But I was really struggling. I was really going through it. I was really going through the challenges of it. So I booked the flight and I was like, let's do it, because I'm not one to shy away from my shadows or my challenges, or when I'm in the metamorphosis, when I'm going through and everything's coming up and all of the criticism and self-judgment is coming up. I know it's serving me, and I know it's for a purpose. And I know on the other side of it is this beautiful experience that's just waiting for me. The higher self, the next level up, is right on the other side of that. So I know when you're in the depths of the dark, I'm not one to get stuck in the loop pattern of I'm going to be here forever, which can keep us caged. But I go head in and I go, this too shall pass. Let's rip it. Let's go for it. And that's exactly what I do. And I've done it all. I've done ayahuasca, mushroom, San Pedro, bufo, DMT, iboga, most recently for plant medicines. And I come back time and time again. These are such healing modalities. But when it comes down to it, the medicines that are most potent for me are the ones that are from within, because all the plant medicines are still outside of ourselves. Whereas when I'm in the dark, or when I'm in my breath work experiences, that's just me. That's me leading the way. That's me guiding the way. And I find them the most potent and most powerful thus far. And that might change, who knows? But yeah, it's just really something that calls to me. So I was in it, going before it, all of the feels, all of the pain, all of the anxiousness was arising. And then I went to that darkness retreat, came home, and I've never been so clear in what I want, what's right for me, what's wrong with me, my path, and never been so connected to my body since. It was just profoundly healing and profoundly life transforming, honestly. And some of the messages that always come from the dark with me is in that first one I went to, is that there's no good or bad. There's no light or dark. Everything is an aspect of God, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's God. It used to never be that, right? I used to have a hard time even saying God in the mystical, metaphysical world. And I grew up Catholic, so that has a lot of the patterning to do with it, because I had learned and been programmed to a very specific God. So I called it the universe for a while. I called it source. I called it light. But now I call it God, because that's what it is for me. And it has a different definition than it used to, but everything is an aspect of God. So it comes to this through both of my journeys so far, and it's something that I'm definitely gonna do more, maybe once a year, if not more, to go back into the dark. It's just something that really soothes my soul. It lifts me up and lights me up. But there is no good or bad. And that's everything. And if you can step out of old programming and old way of thoughts and start to view the world from this perspective, everything will change for you. Because when you realize that everything is an aspect of God, everything is an aspect of the universe, and that we're all interconnected through energy, through source, that the weight gets lifted off of our shoulders, because we stop playing the blame game and we stop judging and we stop criticizing. Because if we can view all challenges in our lives as divine, in ways to elevate and evolve the soul, then just looking at this body is so limited in a vision and perspective. Can you step outside the body into the soul perspective and view it from a lens of that? Listen, everybody's out there trying to figure out this world, right? Just like I said before, there's 7,000 religions. Science is picking up new sciences every day. Newtonian, quantum, electromagnetic, physics, all of these different aspects. Everybody's trying to discover why we're here or find purpose for this life. But what if the purpose is to trust, to not have it all figured out, and to trust that when you are on your deathbed, or when something horrible happens, or when someone you love deeply passes away, trust that there's no such thing as death or birth, then it's a game changer. So what if this whole world is to practice that trust? So when it's your dying day, you're ready for the next step, whatever it might be, whatever it might bring. So rather trying to figure it all out, which I have been a person where my entire life, every day I have thought about how this universe is made. What if you just trust? And in that, have more fun and play with the experiences and play with your life and enjoy the challenges, enjoy the pain, enjoy the pleasure, enjoy the fun, and just experience for what it is without the story. If we can start to detach story from emotion and sensation, you're golden. And that's one of the big messages that always comes to me in the dark, that even emotion, there's no good or bad emotion. There's no right or wrong. There's no wrong choice. We're just here to play, experience, and grow from that. And if you can look at your emotion as a means, as a catalyst for deep, deep change and shifting, as a language from your body communicating with you, and start listening to that language, you'll go into an entire differently flow in life path. I used to love the scales, right? Where it'd be like, shame is the lowest vibrational scale and love is the highest. But I no longer agree with that anymore, because there is no good or bad emotion. It's the story that keeps us trapped. It's the story that keeps us to a prison. It's not the grief of someone passing away. It's that I'll never see them again. My whole life is going to change. How am I going to go on? It's not the anger or the frustration that someone cut you off. It's This happens to me all the time. No one sees me. No one cares about my needs. It's the stories we tell. So can you create more space between story and sensation? And when you create more space between story and sensation, everything changes for you, because that's when intuition and wisdom can truly come through. It's a beautiful, beautiful practice. And it comes through meditation and the somatic practices and the breath work and all of the tools that I teach and do. Gives us that space to start to really listen to our bodies and the language that it's talking to us, because our body is a tool, just like the practices are a tool. It's our soul, which is the divine wisdom that comes through the body, and then we can integrate it out. So coming back to, there's no good or bad, right? So can you experience anger and make it pleasurable? And I'm at a beautiful point in my life now that I can. And I never thought this was possible. But when I'm angry, I can separate the anger from the story and just pendulate the emotion around. So can you take a point of neutrality and look at every situation in your life as, how is this happening for me? Not why is this happening to me? We love to play I'm just going to say it straight up. We love to play the victim. And if you're sitting right there and being like, I don't play the victim. Yes, you do. I'm sorry. Because that was me like last year. And then I'm coming through all of these experiences and be like, oh no, I'm out of victim mentality because I take accountability for what I do. But no, there's still aspects of my life where I am playing the victim because I like it. It's familiar to me. It's what I know. Which is kind of messed up when you think about it, but it's how the psyche works. Like, if there's something in your life that you want and you don't have, you got to ask yourself why, because there's a part of you that wants you not to have it. I'm working on my own thing through like creating vibrant health, right? I'm having some skin stuff and just balancing my hormones and all of these different things that are coming up and arising. And I've been on this journey with it. And I've come to the conclusion that part of me wants to fix myself. Part of me always wants to heal. Part of me likes the attention of having something to fix. I like to be the rescuer, and yeah, I like to rescue other people. I'm a healer. I help people, right? That's a given. But no, I like to fix myself as well, and it's this twisted shadow side, the shadow aspect of myself. But yeah, when I sit with that, it really rings true. So it's through the subconscious reprogramming and the breath and all of the modalities and the meditation and the tools that I use that allows me to clear these energies and switch the patterns. But that victim mentality kind of twinkles into aspects of our lives in an undercover way. So really look into your life and see, where do you like to play the victim? And it's okay, right? But can you see that mentality as not good or bad either? It's just an experience. Can you see your anger as just an experience? And rather than repress it down because we were taught it was bad and not to express it, or sadness is bad, suck it up, be a strong boy or girl, all of these old sayings that we all grown up with. Can you detach story from sensation and play with the sensation? I'm at a point now where truly I can feel shame in my body, I can feel anger in my body, I can feel frustration and grief, and make it almost pleasurable at times. Make it playful. Just notice where it feels in my body and what creation energy is going to come from it, and how it's a beautiful way of creating something new. And we don't really link that with, quote unquote, what people love to say, the negative emotions, when they're not negative at all. It's just a language from our bodies. It is a communication from our body, the vessel that houses our soul, to our soul. So can you step back and see it from that? It will truly be a gift for you. Because if you can strengthen your mind and train your brain to separate story from sensation, so much space will open up in your life. If you can take the perspective that this is happening for me, not why is this happening to me, your whole life will change. And if you can start to communicate with your body in the wisdom that it tells you, you'll start walking your path without any doubt in your mind. You'll be living confidently, authentically, in your power, trusting yourself. And a lot of this wisdom for me has come from these experiences of the dark. But I do a lot of work. I do a lot of shit. Let's not put that aside. I'm always going into my shadow, but that's one of the biggest aspects for me. I'm always going into my shadow, into the dark, with an open heart, with love, embracing the inner villain, embracing these shadow aspects. And so much wisdom and truth and depth comes from learning about these versions of myself that it's so beautiful. But let's take it back to Guatemala, because I can go on little tangents there, right? Of the darkness itself. For me, the dark is a really powerful place. And this just isn't the dark of like the shadow working of going into psyche or anything like that. I am doing that in the darkness, but this is truly a recalibration with this sense of being. And that is a scary place for me to be. I've come to find out. I've realized that I had a big fear about being present. I had a big fear about being in the moment. I was taught at a very young age to perform, succeed, and do all that you can do to get ahead of your components. And I unfortunately learned that I had to do it all on my own, that support weren't safe, people weren't safe. You couldn't trust people is what I've come to learn more and more as one of my subconscious beliefs. So I was really good at looking to the future to plan what I was going to do. What am I going to do? How am I going to make money? How am I going to be stable? And looking back at the past to ruminate on everywhere I effed up, right? Everywhere I messed up. And I'm really working, side note, trying hard not to say fucked up these days, of a slighted version of the feminine power, because when we say fucked, right, we're not talking about men getting fucked. We're talking about the woman getting fucked, right? So I'm trying to change that energy within. So really messed up looking at the past and replaying all of those things, that the present wasn't safe. So I learned that, and that became a pattern. So a lot of us have that pattern. We're looping to the future. We're looping to the past. What did I do wrong? How can I change in the future to be safe? What can I put in place to change my patterns, to change or just do things differently? That we skip over the present, but the present is the key point of everything, because it's where life occurs. And it's where true joy happens, and true expansiveness and creativity. And it's that childlike demeanor. What makes children so happy and free is because they're always in the present. They're not planning. They don't have any concept of time. They're not planning in the future or ruminating on the past. So I had a really deep experience of reworking this idea of presence. And when I was in the dark, it's exactly what you think it is. It's a dark room. This one was built out of river stones from a local river. It was beautiful. It has a shower, a bed, a meditation mat. My other one had a bathtub. It has a toilet, and it's complete black, right? Pitch black. You can't see anything. You cannot see your hand 3 inches in front of your face. So you got to know the room. You're walking around. I count in steps. I kind of shuffle around the room. But for me, I lay a lot. I'm in deep meditation, deep feeling. A lot of times I forget that I'm in the dark, and I forget that my eyes are open also, because it seems like they're closed. So I would like to say you lose track of time, but I never lose track of time. I realize how addicted I am to the time and what time it is, and how patterned I am to wandering the time quite often when I'm in the dark. But it's a beautiful experience for me. This past one, it was just deep sensations of anger and frustration and rage coming through. Rage of the feminine, rage of the masculine, rage of past hurts and traumas. I had deep womb healings, ancestral healings, connecting with the God within, beacon of light exploding out of my heart. It was really quite magical and beautiful. This was pretty phenomenal, actually. I was going through, like I said before, I was raised Catholic, so I was going through anger of God and the church and all of the way, but mainly God, not even the church, of all of its misdoings and all of the patterning that I grew up with being in a religious faith. And when I was doing this, it was thundering, such loud thunder, and anger and frustration and rage was coming up, and it was just like boom, 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 boom. And I was cutting cords, and all of these energetic ties were clearing off of me, and it was wild and amazing. And I was like, oh my God, this thunder, this is so insane. And then all of a sudden, the anger processed through, and my heart started to open. In that moment, the thunder stopped and birds started chirping. It was unbelievable. It was absolutely unbelievable. And then I had this deep connection with God, and it filled up my entire vessel and being, and just tears were strolling down my face as my heart opened even more. And I continue to do this work because every time there's new levels of love and joy and pleasure and experience that I didn't know existed before. I didn't know existed before. I didn't know, right? And that's what most of this is. Like, I didn't know that you could love on this level. I didn't know that the love was inside of me. And it's just such deep recalibration of that truth over and over again in the darkness. It's beautiful. And then I had these crystal healings coming through, and just such deep inner workings of my soul in these moments. It was truly, truly a chrysalis of transformation in that point. And that was just a small aspect of it. And it's a little scattered now because you're in these experiences and integrating back home. They come back kind of like a dreamlike state. But so much happened when I was in there. One of the first things that happened that first night is I was just feeling pain all over my body. Deep, deep pain. And I went into it, and that's when anger started to come through, and I was just feeling through it, and then the pain would dissipate. And it was this message of, why have you disconnected with me? Why have you stopped listening to me? And it was wisdom from my body coming through. And it's in that point I realized how important it is to connect with your body, to love your body, to be in your body, and that this truly is the message in the language, and it speaks to you every day. My experience has went from the God healing thunderstorm and being filled with light to anger and rage towards myself, towards my family, towards child trafficking, towards the masculine, deep ancestral wounds coming up to be cleared and shifted out of my psyche and subconscious and energy centers. I had womb healing and crystals and crystal eggs planted in my womb. This in complete alignment to being. My third eye was detoxing, and this was a very powerful experience for me. My third eye was detoxing. And yeah, I feel that. I feel that. And I was like, okay, my third eye is detoxing. I feel it. I felt the sensation, the pulsation through my third eye. But then, I don't know, time, again, it gets a little crazy in there. So then my eyes started leaking. I wasn't crying. I wasn't feeling emotion. They were just leaking. And it was getting a little gooey. And I was like, I went in the I went to the lake, got conjunctivitis. I've had conjunctivitis so many times when I was younger. So I was like, okay, this is clearly I had trauma from conjunctivitis in my childhood. So I did my healings on that. And then the conjunctivitis turned into, I am blind. I shit you not. And I was like, holy shit, I'm blind. I'm like, what if I'm blind? No, I am blind. This is a disease and I am blind. And I still had 3 more days in the dark. So in that moment, it was just wild. Whew. It was this deep acceptance of being blind. Because if I am blind, nothing that I was thinking about, again, which was like work, what am I going to do? The like bullshit that runs through the head on the daily basis. If I am blind, none of that matters. None of it. And that's when shush of energy came through of the present moment is truly the only thing that matters. Because these might be my last few days of thinking I might have vision. And everything could change after that. And everything could change in an instant. So why am I so obsessive about things that don't actually matter? And why and where am I not bringing more joy and excitement and love and play into my life? And with that, an openness in my heart just flooded through. It was quite beautiful. And I trusted either way that if I'm blind, I'm blind. Okay. I trust the universe. It was deep, deep, deep trust. That will be my mission. That will be my path. And on the other hand, a fear crept into my mind. So I had this complete acceptance of being blind, but now the eye disease turned into a flesh-eating disease, and I convinced myself I was dying. And when I was working with that energy, it was intense. I had a complete life review. My whole life flashed before my eyes. And once again, I surrendered to the fact, if I'm dying, I'm trusting in the universe. Because that is the purpose of this world, in my belief right now. To trust in ourselves, to trust in the universe, to trust in God, and to just trust in our experiences. And when I had my life review, the only thing that I would have changed was be a bigger light. Stop playing small. Be more authentic, because part of me hides the crazy thoughts that go in my head, right? And they're not that crazy. They're just very not standard. That's for sure. They're very galactic and energetic and out there to a common person's view. And the wisdom was, stop hiding that aspect of yourself. Be bigger, be louder, be a brighter light. Live more confidently and authentically in who you are. And that was a huge gift to understand and to embody, right? Because I know it, but now I felt it. And now I'm working on embodying it, because those are the stages. We know something and you can absorb so much knowledge and not implement a thing. And then you'll start to feel it and you're like, oh, I feel it now. Usually it's like, oh, I feel it. Now I know it. And then you think you know everything because you feel it. But then you start to embody it and take action off of it. And then you're like, oh, now I get it. And who knows, maybe I'll find out in another year or so that there's a step past that I didn't realize there was either. But it was this beautiful healing experience for myself. And I am not blind, thankfully. But I surrendered to the fact that if I were, it would be okay. And that's my path. And that's what surrender means. It took me a long time to understand what surrender meant, because I didn't realize I was holding on to everything still so tightly in life. I didn't realize I was gripping. I thought I was letting everything go. Whew. But that just wasn't the case. So I learned deep lessons and sensations and understandings of surrender in the dark, because the dark is about surrendering. The feminine energy is about surrendering, not doing, being in the presence, letting life make love to you, right? And enjoying the pleasure of all of the sensations that come along with it. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience for me. I went through different other aspects where there was deep wisdom of my energy's infinite, I'm infinite, knowing that my curiosity is my guide, because I am a very curious person. I love to travel, I like to do, I love to explore. And sometimes I'm like, am I being too intense? But no, that is my guidance. I don't have to know why I'm in a place. My frequency is there, radiating and emitting exactly what it needs to do at that point in time. And I'm here to be a service to that aspect as well, which is quite beautiful. And there was just higher self-mergers, light exploded out of my chest. It was healing upgrades. It was activating. I was practicing remote viewing and bilocating, because one of my goals in life is to levitate, and it will happen. I know that to be true. No, legit, like it's happening. But it was just deep insight and wisdom of myself, learning that my freedom and my addiction to freedom and traveling is sometimes a coping mechanism that I had running away from myself, and that it shifted a whole new perspective for me, because now I can travel and go different places, and I've had this passion for freedom and sovereignty and all of these things that I can approach not in a shadowed perspective anymore, but with more of a whole heart and expansion from it. And one of the deepest lessons that the dark taught me was that I need to connect back with my body. And most people are disconnected from their body. They have no awareness of their body. Like at this point, legit, I could like move the muscles of my like ovaries if I needed to. They're not muscles, I know that, but you get the picture. My awareness of my body is really, really spot on. But our society as a whole is a huge disconnection from our bodies. We are not in tune with where we are, who we are, and that is a large reason of why we are so depressed, so confused, not confident. And yeah, our soul and body aren't linked. And I've learned all of these deep practices of coming back to my body, because I was still working out of a way to trying to fix myself. And I'm not here to fix myself. I now embody such a passion of love, which is a whole nother topic we'll get into another time. But it starts with connecting with your body first and developing the language, speaking to your body through your breath and listening to your body through its emotions, through its sensations, through what it's telling you, and using that as your guiding force to get back into your body. Because a lot of the times before this, I was running from it, and I didn't have any awareness of that. I was doing the plant medicine journeys, the breath works, like the meditations, all as an aspect of escapism, almost. No, not almost, 100%. I was transcending the body for enlightenment, which is huge in the spiritual community as well. But that is not the key, right? That's a coping mechanism. That's a slighted perspective as well. That's a shadow side. I'm going to escape my body and live up in the clouds and live in this love, light experience, right? When all of your shadows, all of your heaviness is still within. So you're running away from yourself. When in reality, the body is the key. So it's coming back and integrating into the body. And I didn't realize I hadn't loved myself. I thought I was loving myself. Again, it's one of those things you don't know until you know. I thought I loved myself. I thought I was doing the practices and the meditations and all of the embodiment practices and somatic practices to show myself love. But I was still doing it out of the energy of fixing myself. And that switched for me because I was in the shower, and for the first time in my entire life, I was showering to shower out of love. Not to scrub my body and scrub my face and get clean because I'm dirty and put special creams on for wrinkles or to clear my skin or to reduce cellulite or all of these different things, or to clear my energy, rub my body with salt to clear up people's stank off me. Right? No, I was just massaging my arm out of love, and this openness in my heart, another layer of depth came through. And in that moment, I fell in love with myself deeply, how I fell in love with my partner, how I fell in love with my dog, how I fell. And that night I went on a walk and I fell in love with the trees. I fell in love with the tar. I fell in love with the houses because I connected with my body and finally loved it for the first time in a long time. And that was the wisdom of the dark that was coming through you got to connect back with your body. Because when I came home, I went deep I do nothing half-assed. I'm one way than the other, very intense. It's great. It's exciting. I love it. So I went deep into the body. I was moving only how my body wanted to move. I cut out sugar. I completely went into eating beans, which is super grounding. I was connecting with my anger. I was connecting with all this tumultuous energy. And through that connection, it's like I could breathe again. It's really quite profound and powerful. And that connection with our body allows our soul to connect with ourselves again. And until you bridge that gap between the two, you're going to be in the loop of self-criticism, self-judgment, lost, depressed, living the mundane lifestyle, the lackluster life, and not playing with every experiencing and finding the joy of each moment. And a part of that joy is this deep truth, like I was discussing before. There is no good or bad. There's just no good or bad. And I know you can be like, Lauren, look at all the horror that happens in the world. I get it. That's painful. That's challenging. That's a direct reflection of ourselves. The universe reflects back what our inner workings are. And our inner workings is what you see out there. And if you step back from the soul perspective once again, can you view it with an entirely different light? That doesn't make it right. No, it's wrong. It's horrible. Trafficking children, the biggest crime of all, in my personal opinion. Harming a child, biggest crime in this world. But it's a reflection of humanity, showing us the inner workings that need to be done within. And one of the biggest teachings that came through for me is that emotion doesn't have to be hard. Anger doesn't have to be hard. Grief doesn't have to be hard. And actually, when you pendulate into it and you soften into it and you explore into these energies, they can actually be quite pleasurable. Because again, you're separating the story and you're playing with the sensation. And I'm truly at a point where I feel grief, where I feel pain, where I feel anger, and it's enjoyable. It's a constriction, it's a play, it's an energy that I'm going to create with. I'm going to create magic with it. So rather than trying to rid yourself of these energies, like I'm going to get rid of my anxiety, I'm going to get rid of my depression, I'm going to get rid of my shame, Can you open your heart with love and acceptance? And this was a big teacher for me in the dark. I learned how to do this, of softening into these energies. And when you soften into them, when you feel into them, when you have compassion for them, they dissipate on their own. Just like happiness and joy does, right? Because you can't be excited all the time and move like this and run around like this and be the most excited version. That would strain your body. It's just not possible. But we learned how to process excitement. However, we learned how to repress anger and shame, and that's why it holds on to so tightly, as we're holding on to it. But if you can lean into the shame and the anger and the grief and the pain, you'll notice how it just starts to dissipate, and then you can play with it. You can find the enjoyment out of it. It's really quite wild. I truly never imagined I would get to a place like that, but it's possible. It's beautiful too. And it's largely to do with the fact that I can separate story from the sensation. I don't get caught in the loop. And even more to do with the fact of my practices, my meditation that has had trained my brain to create this space for the wisdom to come through. Because if you're in a stress state, you can't connect with your intuition. If you're disconnected from your body, you can't connect to your intuition. And if you think you can't connect with your intuition, you're not going to connect with your intuition. And that's a huge aspect as well. Having the perspective that everything is divine. Everything is an aspect of God. And stepping out from that soul perspective will create so much space in your life. And hopefully in that space, you learn, you create, you play, you enjoy. And there's a process, right? You have to feel it first. You have to express yourself, because we live in a society where we repress. So we have that program. So one of the most blocked chakras in our world is the throat chakra, or in our society, I should say, the throat chakra. But it's kind of like twofolded, because people don't express themselves, they don't speak their truths, all of that, of course. But underneath that, it's actually a blocked root chakra, because people don't feel safe. So when we're doing the work or getting deeper into our practices, when we're feeling emotions, we need to have that expression to feel safe with emotion. So that's why even in my breathwork sessions, I promote a lot of screaming, yelling, being seen and heard amongst loving individuals, and speaking your truth will open up that throat chakra. But there comes a point where we're chasing that cathartic release. And to process emotion, it actually doesn't have to be that much work. And that's what I learned. It can be quite gentle, actually, and enjoyable. So rather than that cathartic release that everybody's searching for, you can open the heart with acceptance and love, but only after you open the throat chakra and feel safe with your emotions. So it's a stepping process. And this is the stepping process for many of these things. It's why the subconscious work is so important. It's why the meditation is so important. It's why the breath is so important. It's why the journeying and the inner reflection and the journaling is so important, because it's the layers of the self slowly coming off. It's the play of an eagle. No, I mean, a hawk just flew by my window. So beautiful. It's the play of who we are in self-discovery, and it's juicy and it's ooey and it's gooey and it's messy and it's not perfect because it's not supposed to be perfect. But once you open up the throat, you get into the root of, okay, I'm going to be safe in my body. And that's where you can really start to connect back with yourself. And that's when you can really soften into all these emotions and just play with all of these different sensations. And it's really quite beautiful. So I highly recommend darkness retreats to anyone. I highly recommend doing the work in your shadow work before you do so, just so you can prep yourself. Because I know a lot of people can struggle with it, right? The loop will play in their head. And if you don't have the proper tools, that loop doesn't stop. But if you have the tools to cut the loop, you have the power to dismantle it. It takes time and patience and practice. So do you have the time and patience and practice that you want to put in? My favorite part about the dark, doing nothing. When's the last time you have ever done nothing for an extended period of time? Like not on your phone, not doing work, not thinking about what you got to do. Like I said, that's one of my biggest bugaboos. Like I have a really hard time doing nothing. I am programmed to be a worker bee. I'm programmed to be, I am a woman, hear me roar. I'll do it all and I'll do it all on my own. And guess what? It's going to be better than anything you're going to do. And I'm really working on rewiring that and shifting those energies within. So for me, the dark is the most beautiful place to do absolutely, positively nothing. And granted, you just heard all the things that happened in it. It was a whole lot of something while doing nothing. And that's the most powerful thing. More stuff happens in the place of being than doing. More stuff happens in the place of being than doing. And that is a complete narrative flip. So do less and you'll produce more. It's really quite wild. And those who are stuck in their loops, you got to put in the work. Otherwise, you're just being the victim of your life. And I know it's familiar. I know it's comfortable, but it's not where you want to be. So thank you so much for listening, everybody. It was a pleasure to share my experience, although scattered now. It's thinking back, it's so funny to look at it because it was so clear when I got out, and now a few months out, I'm like, oh wow, it was good to revisit some of those things. But this is the first of many, more to come on all different topics of presence, pleasure, play, how to have more fun in our lives, and just create this beautiful life where we awaken to our divinity and connect with our bodies, our souls, our emotions, our hearts, and lead with our passions. So till next time.